Hello and welcome to the Summoner's Gambit tutorial. In this video we're going to go over the basics of how to play Summoner's Gambit. For more information on specific pieces of the game, please go to the info section in the main menu. Every time you start a game of Summoner's Gambit, you will be dealt 3 cards from your deck, specifically 3 creature cards. We'll go more into what is a creature card in a moment, but for the time being you'll be dealt these 3 cards, and you must select one of them to be your hero throughout the game. Hero creatures are identical to their normal version counterpart with 3 main exceptions. The first one is their damage is twice as much as the normal version of the card. So the Barbarian hero has 6 attack in this version of the game, while the standard Barbarian only has 3. They also have 10 additional HP. This would mean that the Barbarian only has 1 HP, but the hero version has 11. And they have a special ability. In the Barbarian's case, he boosts all allies' damage that are in the same column. We must select one of these 3 cards to be our hero. This will not deduct from the amount of cards of that specific type in our deck. So if we have 3 knight cards in our deck and one of them is dealt to be our hero, it will not be deducted from the deck. We will still have 3 knights in our deck. We'll just have a knight hero in addition. For this demonstration, let's select the knight as our hero. Your hero will be summoned in the middle of the last column from left to right. Your hero will be denoted as such with a crown on the top of their head. If at any point during the game your hero dies, you lose the match. In most cases, your objective is to eliminate your opponent's hero, which is denoted by a silver crown. Depending on the game mode, there might be additional objectives to either win or lose the game, and they will usually be displayed in this area up here, in this what we see now blank slate. We're playing quick match, so that means we just have to eliminate the opposing hero. A simple match to start out, and one that is recommended to familiarize yourself with how the game works. Now that we've selected our hero, we will start out our turn in the summoning phase. There are 4 different phases in the game, and you can learn more particulars about them in the info section in the main menu. In the summoning phase, we're allowed to play cards from our hand and or draw 1 card per summoning phase. Let's talk a little bit about how cards work. Okay, so let's talk about our cards now. Our hand is at the bottom of the screen. We can have up to 3 cards in our hand at any given time. To view a card, click or tap on it once. This will highlight the card and make it larger and easier to see if you're on a mobile device. There are 2 types of cards in the game: creature cards and spell cards. Creature cards have 5 icons surrounding the card, while spell cards only have 2. In all cases, all cards share the top 2 icons, which indicate the cost of the card. On the top left, you have how much mana the cost cards to play. And on the top right, you see how much essence the card generates once played. We'll talk more about essence in a moment. On the top portion of the card, you see an image representing the card itself. In the middle, you see the name of the card. And on the bottom portion, you see a description. The bottom 3 icons are exclusive to creature cards. A creature card is a card that allows you to summon a creature onto the field. The creature in question will have 3 attributes. The first one is power, how much damage or healing the creature does. The second is movement. This tells you how much a creature can move per turn. We'll discuss movement in a moment. And on the bottom right, you see how much health the creature has. This indicates how much damage the creature can take before it is destroyed and leaves the field. Tapping or clicking on the card once again will return it to its original size, but given a golden hue. This golden hue indicates that the card has been selected and is ready to be played. In the case of a creature card, that would mean that we could summon it on our side of the field. In the case of a spell card, that would depend on the card itself, but it can also be played on your opponent's side of the field, depending on what the description of the card is. Now let's quickly discuss our resources and our field. On the top left, we have our essence indicator on the top and our mana indicator on the bottom. Our mana indicator is a number next to the blue crystal, which tells us how much mana we currently have. If a card costs more mana than we currently have, we cannot play the card. On the top, we have our essence indicator. Our essence indicator tells us how much essence we currently have. Once we have 3 essence, a field power will be activated. We'll discuss that more when we get to it. The entirety of the field is a 9x9 grid. 3x3 of this grid is our side of the field. And this means 3 columns and 3 rows are ours. You can play any of your creatures on any of the different cells as long as they're not occupied by any creature, whether it be yours or your enemies, on this side of the field. The darker cells indicate your enemy's side of the field, and you usually cannot play creatures on it. Some creatures might have a special ability that allow you to do this, but the general rule of thumb is you cannot play creatures on your opponent's side of the field. Alright, let's try summoning a creature. We saw that we had 10 mana, and the knight is still highlighted with a golden hue. So, let's once again select a portion of the board to summon our knight. Let's summon him right on the top row. This summons our creature to the board, and now he is here ready to fight for us. The mana that it cost was automatically deducted, and the essences generated was automatically placed. You can see these on the top left. The card has also disappeared from our hand. This gives us 1 card space, which means we can draw a card. You can only do this once per summoning phase though. We haven't done it this turn, so we'll click on the Draw Card button, which is on the bottom left of the screen. Let's do that now. A new card has been generated into our hand, and we once again have 3 cards. If we were to try to draw another card, we wouldn't be able to. 1, because we don't have enough space, and 2, because we already drew a card this turn. Let's try playing a spell card now. The Fireball deals 3 damage to an enemy. As you can see, this card lacks the 3 bottom icons that our Knight card had earlier. That's because this is a spell card. Its effect will immediately resolve and disappear from the field. Let's try playing it. Once we click it again, it turns a golden hue indicating that we can play it. Since it deals 3 damage to an enemy, it would be best to play it on an enemy cell. Let's try playing it on this skeleton that's on here on the top. Alright, to play the card, we just have to click on the cell where the enemy in question is. We click on the enemy, and as you can see, it does 3 damage to the skeleton, eliminating him. The skeleton generated 1 mana when he died. That's how you replenish mana in Summoner's Gambit. Enemies have a chance of generating mana. As you saw, our card cost 3 mana to cast, and the enemy generated 1 mana. This leaves us with 7 at the end of the day. The enemy's gone, and we can now continue with our match. To view how much health or damage a creature does, on the top of their heads is an indicator saying how much health they have in a red bar. In the case of our knight, for example, he has 5 health left. On the left, you see how much power the creature has. In the case of our knight, it's 1, indicating that he does 1 damage. Our enemy hero, for example, has 11 health and 2 damage. The enemy that we just destroyed had 1 health and 1 damage, so our 3 damage from the fireball was more than enough to destroy him. We could play more creatures if we wanted to, but instead, let's move our creatures. To move your creatures, you must move into the movement phase. To do so, click on the bottom left button that says Movement Phase. Let's do that now. Doing so changes the indicator on the top of the screen. In the top of the screen, rather than saying Summoning Phase as it used to, it now says Movement Phase. In this phase, we can still view our cards, but we can no longer play any. Tapping or clicking on the cards will change its size to allow us to read it, but you will no longer get the golden hue when you tap it the second time. Let's tap one of our creatures instead. Let's select our hero. Doing so highlights the different places our hero can move. How far a creature can move depends on the movement on the original card. Our hero had only 1 movement, just like any regular knight, so we can only move him once per movement phase. Let's advance. To do so, click on the now green highlighted cell that is in front of him. This causes our knight to move once, and that's it for him this turn. Once you have moved all the creatures you would like to move this turn, you click on the Next Turn button. This will automatically pass through the next two phases of the game, the combat phase and the enemy movement phase. The combat phase and enemy movement phase automatically resolve. Now, we could still move our knight if we wanted to, but we're okay with having him where he is. So we click the Next Turn button. A new enemy has appeared, nobody moved, and no combat was done. In quick play matches and in some specific scenarios, enemies will be automatically spawned in the back row. This depends on the mode. As you can see, we're now back at the summoning phase. Once again, we can draw a card to start off our turn, and we can play as many cards as we want or are able. Let's try summoning another creature. Let's try summoning our archer. Once again, we click on the archer, we click on it again, or tap it of course if you're on a mobile device, which will give him that golden hue, and we select a specific cell that is not occupied by a creature. Let's play him down here. Alright, so this has created our archer. However, if you look at the screen, you'll notice that we now have 3 essence, and a new icon has appeared next to it. The music will also change. Let's talk a little bit about what this means. This is what is called as a field power or a global ability. These are automatically triggered and affect the entirety of the field once you get 3 essence. Their effects usually have a positive and a negative side of it, and which power you're going to get is completely random. There might be some cards, however, that alter this behavior. The icon shows up on the right of the generated essence field. When you click it, you'll get a description of what this specific power does. In this case, we got Red Rain of Pain. What this power does is that it gives the player 2 mana for each of his creatures on the field, but sets all enemy attack to 3 at the same time at the end of the turn, of course. Uh-oh. So that means we might get a hefty amount of mana. In our case, we'll get 6 mana, but our enemies will all have 3 attack power. That'll raise this enemy necromancer's attack from 0 to 3, and our enemy hero's attack from 2 to 3. This might be inconvenient to deal with, but there's not much we can do about it. Well, I think we've played as many creatures as we wanted this turn, so maybe it would be a good time to move. However, since we have 3 generated essence, you can't over-generate or generate more, and all of it resets at the end of the turn. So it would be a good moment to play our healer who would normally have a cost of 2 essence. Since now we won't have to think about essence because we already have an essence power, global ability already in play. So let's play our healer. Let's play him behind our knight, just to be safe. As you can see, our healer's power is 2. That means that our particular healer does 2 healing. This healer, if you read the description of the card before you play it, you will know that he, or she in this case, actually does 2 healing to creatures that are in front of her, up to a range of 2. We can't draw any more cards because we already drew as many as we could, so let's move to the movement phase. Our archer has 1 range, so let's move him 1 space forward. He is now in range to attack the enemy healer. Let's move our healer 1 space forward as well. Now, our hero has a special ability. In his case, all creatures in the same column will gain 1 defense. This specifically activates when you hit the Next Turn button and go into the attack phase. When we go into the attack phase, our archer will take a shot at the enemy hero. And the enemy hero, since he can't attack, won't do anything. The enemy necromancer, however, might activate his special ability. Let's see what happens. After the attack phase, the enemy movement phase activates, and in this case, 2 creatures moved. As you saw, there was a skeleton that was spawned in front of our necromancer. That wasn't the random spawning of a quick match, that was our enemy necromancer's special ability. He summons a creature in order to, in this case a skeleton warrior, to the field in order to combat us. Now we have to deal with this enemy creature. For the sake of this tutorial, we have removed the Red Rain of Pain counter ability, But normally what would have happened is our enemy's summoner would have had 3 attack power, and our enemy hero would have had 3. We have taken a quick pause from our current match to demonstrate one final mechanic of the game that is important to keep in mind. As we already stated, it's important to keep your hero alive because otherwise you'll lose the game. In this current match we're playing, you can see that our hero, in this case a knight like our previous example, has 1 damage done. You can also see that we have a new healer type in the game. We won't really discuss this much, as you can see it on the card when you get a chance to play it. But right now, this healer has 1 armor, which can be seen to the right of her health. Armor is a special buff that usually is not inherent into most creatures. Some creatures might have a special ability that gives them armor, or they might receive armor from special abilities of other creatures or spell cards. If you remember from the beginning of this tutorial, the knight, when converted into a hero, has a special ability. That ability is to give all of player creatures in the same column 1 defense or armor. So what has happened in this game is that in previous turns, the healer has been in the same column as the hero, gaining 1 armor. Our hero knight can only give 1 armor max to any given creature, so she won't be able to get more than 1 armor, unfortunately. What armor does is that when damage is dealt to our healer, it is deducted first from the armor and then from the health. That would mean that if she were to receive 1 damage, she would just lose her armor, the icon would disappear, but she would still keep her 2 health. If 2 damage was done, she would lose 1 armor and 1 health. So that would mean that this creature that would usually die with 2 or more damage done to it would need at least 3 damage done to it to die in a single hit. Let's demonstrate the next mechanic. As you can see, we currently have 2 enemy skeletons on our top row. If we click the movement phase, we'll move to our movement phase as usual, and we could move our creatures if we wanted to. But if we click on next turn, what will happen is that combat will happen, and then movement. So, at most, this enemy necromancer could create a skeleton, but no combat would happen since these are all melee creatures. However, when the enemy movement happens, you'll notice that they are now in our back column. You also notice that our healer healed our knight that had only 14 HP back to 15. You'll notice when a healer does his thing, when the heal effect is spawned onto the field, which in this case was just some pluses onto our hero knight. However, now we have a different problem. Enemy skeletons are occupying our back row. This not only means that we now have 2 spaces that we can't summon the knight in our hand, but it also means that at the end of this turn, aka when the enemy movement phase happens, we're actually going to see these creatures die and something's going to happen. Let's see now what that something is. Go to the movement phase, we're not going to move, and as you can see, the enemy skeleton attacked and we lost 1 mana. We had 3 mana before this and now we lost 1. What happens is that when enemy creatures reach your back row, they will attack, be destroyed, and the health that they currently have will be deducted from your mana. If you don't have any mana, however, that amount will be deducted from your hero's health. If the creature that reaches the back row is a hero enemy, it will be transported to the farthest available cell in the same row. Let's go ahead and check it again. As you can see, we lost another mana point. Now we only have 1 mana. Let's continue to play this match and see what happens. We'll fast forward so you don't have to see it. So, we've received some more damage to our mana by the enemy skeletons that were in the top row. Now, however, we have the enemy hero in our back row. What's going to happen is we're going to lose 11 mana, but we only have 2. Let's go ahead and click the movement phase, and then click on the next turn button to see what happens. As you can see, there were many things that happened during that turn. The first thing is that we lost 11 mana, but we only had 2, which meant that the resulting 9 was done damage to our hero. And now our hero is weak and only has 4 health left. Not only that, we have no mana, so we can't play any more cards. On top of that, we have an enemy skeleton in our back row. So once we click the next turn, we're going to receive 1 damage because we don't have any mana to protect ourselves with. This can easily cause a game to get out of hand, so be sure to protect that back row and not allow your enemy to march onto your side of the field without any consequence. The last thing we would like to introduce to you is the top right button known as the menu button. Clicking or tapping it once will open up the options menu. With it, you could either close the game, cancel and continue playing, or go back to the main menu. Let's go back to the main menu since for the purposes of this tutorial we've achieved everything we wanted to achieve. It is important, however, to point out that once the attack phase and the enemy movement phase happened, the essence that we had went back to 0 and Red Rain of Pain disappeared. Now all cards that we were to play would generate essence if they have essence to generate. Let's go back to the main menu. In the main menu, if you'd like more information regarding the different phases of the game or different pieces of information regarding the game in its entirety, you can go to the info section and read more about it. Thank you for watching this tutorial.